The handcuffs snapped around Eleanor Harrington's wrists with a sound sweeter than any country song I'd ever heard. 6 black SUVs blocked the cul-de-sac of Pinecrest Estates while her platinum blonde bun came undone like cheap ribbon in the Texas wind. "This is MY Community," she shrieked, Gucci sunglasses dangling from one ear. "I've run this HOA for 19 years. You cannot do this to me." I leaned against my dusty F-250, tipped my hat, and let the morning sun catch the old deed in my hand. The woman who'd spent 3 weeks calling me that lazy cowboy trash who doesn't understand community standards was finally learning exactly how wrong she was. Because 3 weeks ago, I'd driven into Pinecrest Estates thinking I was just claiming my late uncle's land and walked straight into the biggest HOA scam this side of the Rio Grande. I still remember the leather chair and Henderson and Associates smelling like old money and fresh lies. The attorney slid the folder across the mahogany like it was a loaded gun. "Mr. Ryan Hale," he said, voice low, "your Uncle Ezra left you Whispering Oaks Ranch, 427 acres, never part of any homeowners association." I opened the folder and saw the red lines on the map wrapping my family's legacy like a hug from 1891. An island of freedom in a sea of beige McMansions and approved mailbox colors. Then he dropped the bomb. "There's a problem. Pinecrest Estates HOA has been treating your ranch as their common area. They built stables, a pickleball court, and sold 12 luxury lots at $1.2 million each." My jaw tightened. Uncle Ezra had never donated a single blade of grass. He died 8 months ago, and the only person at his funeral had been me, the nephew who'd spent 12 years as a federal land investigator before retiring to train horses and forget how greedy people could get. The drive from Austin took 3 hours of flat highway and growing rage. When I finally pulled up to the rusted iron gate with Hale 1891 carved in stone, someone had slapped a shiny white sign right over my family name. Pinecrest Estates, common area, authorized personnel only. Fresh paint on the new stable gleamed like fresh blood. Thoroughbreds grazed where my great-grandfather's cattle once roamed. And a big red luxury lots for sale, starting $1.2 million, sign mocked me from the front porch of the house my ancestors built with their bare hands. I was snapping photos when 2 white HOA patrol SUVs screeched up, blocking me in. 4 polo shirt clones stepped out like they'd rehearsed this. Then she emerged, Eleanor Harrington light blue power suit, red nails sharp enough to draw blood, clipboard clutched like a sheriff's badge. She looked like the kind of woman who'd smile while stabbing you in the back and call it protecting property values. "You're trespassing on HOA common property," she announced, voice syrupy and sharp at the same time. I held up the deed. "Ma'am, this land has been in my family since 1891. Never part of any HOA." She laughed, the kind of laugh that makes dogs growl. "Honey, I've already collected $4.8 million in deposits. Buyers move in next month. It was donated to the HOA in 2019. I have the paperwork." I stared at her. "My uncle died in 2022. He never signed anything." Her smile never wavered. "Details, details. Now you have 5 minutes before I call Sheriff Morrison and have you arrested for trespassing and maybe brandishing that big scary truck of yours." I could have argued. I could have stood there while the sheriff she obviously owned showed up. But 12 years chasing land thieves across 3 states had taught me one golden rule. Never show your full hand until you know exactly how deep the snake pit goes. So I tipped my hat, climbed back in the truck, and drove off slow enough to make her think she'd won. In the rear view I watched her adjust her pearls like a queen who just crushed a peasant. Little did she know I was already dialing the one number I swore I'd never use again. Federal Land Investigation Division picked up on the second ring. "Extension 742, I said. "Tell them Ryan Hale needs a favor. Retirement hadn't erased my credentials. Some skills like spotting a forged deed from 50 yards never rust." That night in a cheap motel that smelled like regret and cheap coffee, I opened my laptop and started digging. 47 properties linked to Eleanor Harrington's name across 3 states. 19 years of donations from elderly owners who mysteriously signed everything away right before strokes, dementia diagnoses, or convenient deaths. Pattern was crystal clear. target the vulnerable, forge the paperwork, register it as HOA common land, then slice and dice it for luxury development. And every single donation used the same stolen notary seal, one reported missing in 2017, yet somehow notarizing documents until last year. Cute. The next morning I drove to Magnolia Pines Assisted Living. 84-year-old Opal Whitfield sat in the sunroom clutching an old photo of her grandfather's barn. When I told her why I was there, her laugh was bitter as black coffee. "That woman came with cookies and smiles," she said. "Asked me to sign neighborhood safety papers. Next thing I know, my 120-acre farm belongs to the HOA. They told me I signed it. I don't even remember the meeting." Her hand gripped my wrist with surprising strength. "Make her pay, Mr. Hale." For all of us old folks, she smiled to death. She handed me a handwritten list, 12 other families with the exact same story. All dismissed because the paperwork says otherwise. Who believes old people when a perfectly typed document exists? The text came at 10:47 p.m. Unknown number. Parking lot. Blue Camry. Come alone. The roadhouse outside town smelled like stale beer and secrets. Warren Beckley, former HOA treasurer, looked like he hadn't slept since Nixon was president. "She fired me last week for asking about the books," he whispered, pressing a USB drive into my palm. 2 sets of books. Shell companies in Delaware. Kickbacks to Judge Morrison's brother. Offshore accounts. Your uncle's ranch was supposed to be her retirement jackpot. He swallowed hard. 3 months ago she asked me to review my own mother's property, said it was routine estate planning. My mother has Alzheimer's. That's when I knew I had to burn it all down. I left that parking lot with enough dirt to bury an elephant. But Eleanor wasn't done playing queen. The next morning Sheriff Earl Morrison himself showed up at my motel with a restraining order. "You come within 500 feet of any HOA property, including that ranch you claim is yours, and you're in county jail, cowboy." He leaned in close enough for me to smell the bacon on his breath. "My brother's the judge. My cousin runs the clerk's office. Word of advice: leave town before something unfortunate happens." I smiled politely and closed the door. "Thanks for the roadmap, Sheriff." Now I knew exactly whose heads needed to roll first. The title company lady, Greer Ashworth, called me the same afternoon. "Mr. Hale, you need to see this." In her cramped office between a dry cleaner and a faux shop, she spread the documents like a card dealer showing a royal flush. Every single donation deed for the last decade used Colton Murray's notary seal, reported stolen in 2017. Your uncle's signature is dated August 2019 when medical records show he was paralyzed and unable to sign his own name. She removed her glasses. "I already called the FBI. My sister lost her house the same way 6 years ago. She died in a shelter. This one's personal." By now Eleanor was feeling the heat. At the emergency HOA meeting she stood at the podium in her signature light blue suit. Projection screen behind her showing my security camera photo with the caption "Disruptive New Resident." "Ladies and gentlemen, this Ryan Hale person has been harassing our community. He claims ownership of land legally donated to us years ago. The court has already banned him." Nervous applause rippled through the beige folding chairs. I watched from the back. Technically the community center was county property, so the restraining order didn't apply. Loopholes are beautiful. Then the side door opened. Special Agent Miranda Thorne held her badge high. "FBI. This is now a federal investigation. Mrs. Harrington, you are not under arrest yet. But I strongly suggest you don't leave the county." Eleanor's smile froze mid-sentence. For the first time in 19 years the Queen looked scared. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in federal precision. While I sat in a San Antonio hotel watching secure feeds, Agent Thorne's team coordinated warrants across 3 states. I saw the dominoes fall in real time. Servers seized, bank records frozen, county clerk offices raided at dawn. Eleanor's house was the first hit. Agents carried out 23 boxes of documents while she stood on her porch in a silk robe, hair wild, screaming about suing everyone from the governor to God. Judge Morrison was pulled from his chambers still holding his morning coffee. 3 bank executives at First Community Trust tried sneaking out the back. Cameras caught them anyway. The HOA headquarters server room was taped off before lunch. And all the while Eleanor kept repeating to anyone who would listen, "This is harassment. I built this community. Without me there is no Pinecrest Estates." I almost laughed. The same woman who'd fined residents $250 for Christmas lights that were too blue and $500 for flags 1 inch too tall was now crying harassment. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Warren Beckley's testimony lasted 6 hours. Through the one-way glass I watched him dismantle the empire he'd helped hide for 15 years. "There are 2 sets of books," he said, voice steady now. "The one she shows auditors and the real one. Kickbacks to the judge for every foreclosure. Forged donations from people who couldn't even sign their own names. And 3 months ago she targeted my mother. My own mother." The prosecutor didn't even need to ask questions. Warren just kept talking. A dam finally broken. The FBI briefing room smelled like burnt coffee and victory. Agent Thorne clicked to the final slide. 47 properties. $68.4 million stolen over 19 years. Targeted elderly owners with no family. Forged the deeds. Used stolen notary seals. Funneled money through shell companies. And laundered it through the HOA Community Improvement Fund. She looked at me. RICO was the right call. This wasn't a scam. This was an organized criminal enterprise wearing khakis and pastel suits. I drove out to Whispering Oaks that evening. The for sale signs were already gone. The fraudulent HOA markers had been ripped out. All that remained was the original granite pillar with Hail 1891 still standing proud. Greer Ashworth stood beside me as the sun painted the hills gold. "My sister would have loved this," she said quietly. I nodded. "She's seeing it, Greer. Wherever she is." The morning of the arrest was picture-perfect Texas blue sky. Almost too pretty for what was coming. News vans lined the street. 300 residents stood on their lawns in robes and slippers, phones up, recording their own personal reality show. Eleanor's colonial mansion with the white columns looked smaller somehow. Like the house itself knew the game was over. Agent Thorne checked her earpiece. "All units in position." We walked up the driveway together. The door opened before we reached it. Eleanor stepped out. No power suit this time, just a wrinkled nightgown and tangled hair. For the first time she looked like what she really was. An ordinary thief who'd gotten away with it for 19 years. "This is harassment," she screamed, voice cracking. "I know the governor. I'll sue every single one of you." Agent Thorne read the charges loud and clear for the cameras. "Eleanor Harrington, you are under arrest for federal wire fraud, real estate fraud, money laundering, RICO violations, and 17 counts of deed forgery spanning 3 states. Eleanor stumbled backward. "I built this community. Without me there is no Pinecrest Estates. The buyers, the pickleball court, the luxury lifestyle. I did that." I stepped forward, unable to stay quiet any longer. "You stole from dying people. You forged my uncle's signature when he couldn't even hold a pen. You erased families from history and called it community standards." Her eyes locked on mine and the mask finally shattered. "That ranch should have been mine," she shrieked, jabbing a red fingernail at my chest. "Ezra promised it to me years ago. I just took what was." She stopped mid-sentence as realization hit. Every phone, every body cam, every news microphone had just caught her confession on tape. Agent Thorne smiled the coldest smile I'd ever seen. "Thank you for that, Mrs. Harrington. We recorded every word." The handcuffs clicked. $68.4 million in fraud. 47 families robbed. Minimum 25 to 30 years in federal prison. 2 agents started walking her toward the SUV, while the entire neighborhood watched in stunned silence. No one cheered. They just filmed. 300 little rectangles capturing the moment the queen lost her crown. As they loaded her into the back of the black SUV, Eleanor twisted around one last time. "You're just a nobody cowboy," she spat. You can't have one. I tipped my hat back so the sun caught the old federal badge still pinned inside my jacket. Ma'am, I said loud enough for every camera to hear. I was never just a cowboy. The dominoes kept falling all day. Sheriff Morrison was yanked out of his cruiser before lunch. Judge Morrison resigned by 3 p.m. The bank executives were indicted before sunset. By the end of the week, the entire network, 14 people who'd protected Eleanor's little empire, was in custody. Warren Beckley got full immunity and started working with victim advocacy groups. His mother's property was returned within a month. A federal court ordered full restitution, $68.4 million plus interest, to every family Eleanor had erased. Some heirs who'd lost everything finally got their piece of history back. 3 months later, I stood in the sunroom at Magnolia Pines with Opal Whitfield. She was holding the new deed to her farm, eyes shining. First thing I'm doing is putting flowers on my grandfather's grave, she whispered. Telling him we got it back. I didn't say anything. Some moments don't need words. Back at Whispering Oaks, the ranch looked different in the golden afternoon light. The forged signs were gone. The new stable had been torn down. All that remained was the land, patient, ancient, and finally free. I unrolled architectural drawings with Warren standing beside me. Sanctuary for families who lost property to fraud, I told him. A place to heal and fight back. He nodded. Ezra would have liked that. Some people think 19 years of power makes them untouchable. They think rules written on fancy letterhead can erase families and memories and history itself. But empires built on stolen land always have cracks. All it takes is one person willing to look. One person who refuses to be silenced. One person who remembers that land isn't just dirt. It's memory, it's family. It's proof that we were here. I was that person in this story. But in real life, maybe next time it'll be you. So tell me in the comments, was Eleanor Harrington the real villain here? Or was the entire broken system that let one HOA Karen run a criminal empire for 19 years the true monster? Was she just a greedy woman in a power suit? Or did the rest of the neighborhood look the other way because the property values kept rising? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story made you as angry and satisfied as it did me, smash that like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more HOA nightmares where this came from. Thanks for watching, and remember, keep your deeds close and your notaries honest.